Hi class, this is Miss Filiatro here. I am here to explore with you theoretical probability, which is the first lesson of our probability mini unit. So what is theoretical probability? Theoretical probability is how likely an event is to happen based on all of the possible outcomes. We can express theoretical probability using this formula. The probability of an event equals the number of ways it can happen over the total number of outcomes. So let's take a look at a four-piece spinner to explore what theoretical probability is. So here's our four-piece spinner here. It's got four sections with four colors. You could also have a spinner that has numbers on the inside or other pieces of information. So let's say that we wanted to find the probability of landing on red. We first need to think about what are the numbers of ways landing on red could happen. So there's only one red section of the spinner, so there's only one way that landing on red can happen. We also need to think about what is the number of possible outcomes. So if we look at the spinner, we see that there are four sections, which means that there are four possible outcomes. So we can determine that the probability of landing on red equals one way it can happen over four possible outcomes. And you can see this here is a fraction 1 over 4. That is one of the ways that we can express probability is by using fractions. We'll explore some other ways in a little bit. So I want to draw your attention to what is called the probability line. Now, probability can be expressed with a number that falls between 0 and 1. So 0 is, it's impossible. It can't happen. So on that spinner, if I said, what's the possibility or probability of landing on purple? Well, there's no purple section on the spinner, so it would be 0. We have 1 over 4, which is unlikely, and we can also represent that fraction as a decimal, so 0.25, or as a percent, which is 25%. We have equally likely, which we can represent with half, 1 over 2, or half as a decimal, 0.5, or a percent, which is 50%. Then we have likely, which we can express with 3 over 4, or 0.75, or 75%. And then certain. It's going to happen every single time. We can represent that with the number 1, so 1 whole, and 100%. So 1 over 4 as a decimal would be 0.25, and as a percent, it would be 25%. So we can say that the theoretical probability of landing on red is 25%. There is a 25% chance of spinning red. Now you try. Let's look at the probability of flipping a coin. So we'll pick heads or tails. Let's look at landing on heads. What is the probability of landing on heads? So we need to explore what are the numbers of ways you can land on heads. Remember, this is part of our formula for probability, the number of ways it can happen. And we also need to think about how many possible outcomes there are, so the total number of outcomes. So I'll give you a moment to think about those two important pieces of information for our formula for finding the probability of landing on heads. Okay, if you need more time, you can pause the video, but we're going to move on here. So now I want you to write out your formula. So does your formula match your answer? So maybe your answer looks like this. The probability of landing on heads is half, or the probability of landing on heads is 0.5, or the probability of landing on heads is 50%. All right, so I want you to take a look at the HyperDoc next, if you'd like, and maybe familiarize yourself with what's coming up next in the classroom. You could check out some of the website links so that you have a little bit of a head start on what you're going to be working on in the classroom tomorrow when we see each other. So I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning. Bye.